Where politics meets common sense. This is Nightcaps with Nate.
Coming to you live from just outside the swamp of the nation's capital. Get ready for invigorating talk, commentary, and debate on the issues affecting your life. Grab your favorite drink. It's Nightcaps with Nate. Now, here's Nate.
Hey, welcome to Nightcaps with Nate. I'm Nate, and Natalie is here. She is back. She could not handle the fact that there was a conservative voice being on this show without her, so she has come back. Really, I think she was just doing a lot with her family and the end of finals, having to transition to online learning. But this episode is brought to you by I'm on Team Joe. His medical team is sponsoring this ad. It says his medical team, if you know where he is, can you please bring him back to the nursing home? Text Joe to 30330. Yep. So, we will definitely contact you guys if we can find the poor guy.
Nathan, that's rotten. Stop.
It's not rotten. Okay, look. If he was just a normal Joe Schmo with dementia out there, then I would agree with you. But the guy put himself out there. You know what I'm saying? He's put himself out there to run for president of the United States. And it's not even his fault because he doesn't even know he's running for president of the United States. His wife should be ashamed of herself. The DNC should be ashamed of themselves. They could have gone with Bloomberg. They could have gone with Mayor Pete. They could have gone with Klobuchar, but nope, they decided they were going to pump up Joe Biden. For some reason, the DNC did this.
Well, I agree that he put himself in that position. But I mean, don't you think it's kind of sad when somebody, a dignified person his whole life has been in politics, and not, and then this is happening? Because I agree. I think that he has dementia too. But
at least the early on stage. Yeah, I mean, if you ever talk to a dementia patient until they get really bad, they can hold a conversation. They'll forget they had the conversation with you.
Well, who also was accused of dementia was Ronald Reagan. Right before he... No. Listen.
He did not get accused of it. He had Alzheimer's.
Yes. But he came back at it. And
he should have been... The 25th Amendment should have kicked in his last 2 years, and George H.W. Bush should have taken over at that time. There was no reason that they kept him in office besides the fact that he was super powerful, not powerful, powerful within the party, but he was super popular. That's what I'm trying to go.
Right. Well, and then 10 years after he, initially, he made a speech and he said, and he accused the other side of ageism. And exactly 10 years, a decade after that, after he was already done with his presidency, that's when he came out and said that he had Alzheimer's.
If I'd have known you had brought that up, I'd have kept that clip because it was a great clip. He said, it was in a debate, and he said, I will not bring up your youth and lack of experience if you leave me alone at my age, or something like that, and it just won the debate. And
your lack of experience. Way to turn it around. I don't know, maybe Biden.
Well, that's how he was. He was just very, very quick on the quip. He was very good. Now, see, he was, in my opinion, like Donald Trump is without notes. And when Donald Trump is just at his rallies throwing red meat, Donald Trump is his best. But the difference between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan is Ronald Reagan was also very good at reading speeches. He was called the great communicator for a reason. Now, a lot of people say, I think Obama was so boring to listen to. I didn't. I thought Obama was a great orator and a very calming presence to listen to. If his policies would have been good, he probably would have been a great president. But
policy. I mean, he was the only president that had us in a surplus was Clinton. But Obama was pretty darn close until Obamacare.
Well,
when Obamacare came in, that's when we kind of started digging ourselves back out. But right before Obamacare, I mean, we were pretty darn close to a surplus.
The surplus under the Clinton administration, though, is because he cut the military so bad. I mean, honestly, I'm the only Kerr out of our family that was serving during the Clinton administration, and we were literally using old 1970 MREs as our fake mines instead of having the blue. You know how we always had like training aids?
Yeah.
We were out of training aids. The budget was gone. No joke. There were times. Now, remember in the military, in the Army, and I think the Marine Corps does it too, we have to qualify every 6 months with our weapon, right?
Uh-huh.
There were times they had to cancel qualifications because we did not have enough bullets for it. Now, you tell me the richest army in the richest country in the world did not have bullets because the budget was that decimated. So, yes, we could have a socialist country like Europe if Europe will pay for our military like we do theirs.
Well, I think that we should have, I think it should be even across the board, you know? I mean, I think that we should be smart, you know, like if China and Russia, if they have huge militaries, we need to be kind of on board. But there's, I mean, you have to agree that our military budget is inflated.
But that's because there's not enough of the other countries participating. NATO should be, in my opinion, 1.5 times the size and technology as Iran, Russia, and China combined.
Yeah.
And since we don't have that many people, unless we adopt India or into our NATO, then we need to be really 2 or 3, 4 times the technology of Japan, Russia, and China combined.
No,
Not Japan. I'm sorry. Iran, Russia, China combined.
I agree. I think everybody should have a piece of the pie. Yeah, I agree.
So that's where Trump's been doing good because everybody has been Obama was telling NATO, you got to pay more, but he just wasn't. They were kind of like, yeah, okay, got it. Thanks, Barack. Donald Trump is the one that actually went in and said, no, you guys need to start paying more or we'll rethink our alliance with you. And that woke them up because they're like, oh, nobody's ever questioned our NATO alliance, you know, and the media got all over them. But it woke them up because we need them to contribute. They're part of the GDP, and it's based on GDP. That way it takes into effect their economy. So if everybody agreed to pay 2.5 or 3% of their GDP towards defense, then everybody needs to pay 2.5 to 3% towards defense.
Absolutely.
And it's like a club, man. If you don't pay your dues, I'm sorry, we're not there to back you up anymore.
Yeah.
Europe's pretty far from us.
Yeah.
You know, so all right. So we are going to start off with our COVID update because it is Monday, and I like to do COVID updates on Monday. So here we go. Let me cue up my Walking Dead music. It is our Monday COVID update. The ominous virus. You know, I think viruses actually look kind of cool, you know? I don't think that they're that scary. What do you think?
What do you mean by they look cool? Like their molecular structure or?
Yeah, you know, like they show that ball and, you know, the little spikes come out. A lot of times they'll have it color-coded and stuff, and it just looks really awesome, in my opinion.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool until it's in your body.
Yeah. It's like, don't pet it, you know what I'm saying? It's cute to look at. I just think that, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's just the dork inside me, but you know, definitely. You don't want to pet the thing.
Agree. Yeah.
Well, good news. Good news is this, and I'm sure the liberals would be mad because this is good news and they don't really like America. So I'm just kidding. Got to be fair. It's Monday. All right. So daily deaths way down yesterday. Way down yesterday, and looking really good. In fact, so I think that we are definitely on that downward slope. It was looking like up and down, as you can see on this chart. And then daily cases were way down yesterday as well. Overall, hospitalizations are way down. I think that's good news. Now all we got to do is make sure that we keep the good news rolling.
Yeah, New York seems to be cut in half over the past couple of weeks. It was at about 10,000 cases, and now it's down to about 5,000.
Which is good news because that's where a lot of our cases came from.
Yeah.
You know, so far today, yeah, we're probably going to beat past. So, you know how it goes. It's never going to be in a symmetrical downward. So yesterday we were at like 1,100 something. So far today, almost all the states are reported except for, let's see. So far we're at 1,211 deaths for the day. So Connecticut hasn't reported yet. Washington State, they're usually will be put on tomorrow's because they're West Coast, Arizona maybe too. So we might be at 1,300 deaths, which is a lot better than the 2,000 deaths that were racking us the few days prior. So.
Well, you know, the thing that's a little bit, because I'm from Indiana, and the thing that's a little bit worrying me is they're talking about opening back up Indiana. But yesterday we only had about 300 cases in Indiana, and today we're up to earlier today when I checked it, we were already in the 900s. And so I'm kind of worried about my state a little bit.
Well, yeah, but we're testing more too, even Indiana. Mm-hmm. I go off the deaths. What were the deaths yesterday?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't checked deaths. I checked the new cases.
Yeah, it looks like there are about 119 deaths today, or over the last 24 hours. When I say today, that's the numbers that are reported for the last 24 hours. So, sounds like a lot, but guess what?
Are they
Indiana's a big state.
their autopsies though?
I don't know, but anything presumed now, according to CDC guidelines, has to be reported. So, either way, good news. Very glad to be able to report that news. Now, here's the bad news. You think Michigan had it bad? Yep, another Democrat state. New Jersey stay-at-home order extended indefinitely. Indefinitely. All right. First of all, just that headline alone would make me go nuts if I lived in New Jersey, because there's already studies showing that everybody's getting tired. They're getting stir crazy. And you kind of got to give them...
cases there. As of today, New York has 5,000 and they're at 3,000. Well, hello.
Well, they're at 2,150 as of right now.
Well, yesterday they were 3,000.
Yeah, so that's good news because that means they're going down too. New York has over 3,000. But bottom line, most of their cases are coming from the New York City area anyways. You got Hoboken, you got all that around there. But bottom line, dude, I would go freaking nuts. Because as humans, we got to be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel.
You act like you've never been in the military before and the government has never ruined your life before.
I haven't been on indefinite lockdown.
You're in the middle of a pandemic, Nathan. You just got to deal with it. Drink water.
All right, so when we deploy, we get at least a tentative date that we get to come home, right? When we... a
year from now. A year from now, we all get to go shopping again.
Well, yeah, but that's different. We're in the military, okay? But my point is that when you say indefinite, what if you were deploying indefinitely? And they just like, we'll tell you when it gets there. Dude, that would F with your mind.
Yeah, but...
It'd F with your mind.
They're going to open back up. They just have to just hold their horses, sit tight, and just deal with it.
So Governor Phil Murphy outlined his vision Monday for reopening New Jersey amid the COVID-19 outbreak that has claimed the lives of over 6,000 people statewide. Public health creates economic health is the plan's guiding motto, the governor says. The phased approach to safety restarting the state's economy, dubbed the Road Back, includes 6 guiding principles to ensure public health is not put at risk, and they are sustained reduction in new cases, expanded testing. He says they got to double the testing, implement robust contact tracing. That's the thing that got Governor Whitmer in trouble, by the way. She's got a lot to answer for with that because she used that Democratic agency to do it. Now she's saying she's denying knowledge that she knew about it. Securing safe places for isolation. Again, for some reason, they double put that in there. And responsible economic restart, ensuring resiliency. So, bottom line, they got a long way to go, he says. He may actually not even allow the Jersey Shore to fully open, which is crazy because about 4 hours from my house is Wildwoods, New Jersey, and sometimes we go there. In fact, we were planning on going there this weekend, or not this weekend, this year for at least 4 or 5 days. Guess we're not going now.
Yeah, we're supposed to be in Florida right now. We had everything booked. We were supposed to go to Disney, and Disney closed.
Yeah,
so
Disney's overrated
we
anyways.
got like half of our money back from our home away, and we our flight tickets they're holding for us. So we can use them within a year. So
yeah, you should have taken the refund for your flight tickets, and then bought them, repurchased them at a much cheaper price right now for the entire year.
They wouldn't give us a refund. We booked through Southwest, and they said that they'd hold them for us for up to a year.
Yeah, I bet. Bottom line, waste of money anyways. Are you going to Shades of Green?
No. Oh,
Shades of Green's a military resort you'd probably, as a veteran, probably could have gotten into. But, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Disney. I liked Universal Studios much better. I've been to Orlando several times, and it's much better. So, all right, so, yep, New Jersey, you're stuck. Sorry, but it's not going to work. I'll tell you why it's not going to work. People are just going to get in their car and drive south anyways.
No.
They're not going to stay. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the United States. If you don't like what your state's doing, you get in a car and you drive south. So, basically, they're going to just lose out on a shitload of tourist money to neighboring states that are welcoming that money. And that's the beauty. That is the beauty of capitalism. You know?
So you're saying that Michigan people are just going to leave Michigan and go south?
Well, I mean, that's Ohio. And for all the Ohio State fans out there, we know that Michigan hates Ohio. So we'll just skip right past Ohio and go to a real state. The only thing we like about Ohio is Cedar Point. That's it. Yeah. Shout out to Cedar Point.
Yeah. Well, we have Michigan Adventures in Michigan,
It's not Cedar Point.
Yeah.
Cedar Point is its own little animal.
I used to also go to Kalahari and Sandusky, but now that I live over on the west side, it's actually faster for me just to go to the Wisconsin Dells.
Which is even better. But the largest Kalahari now is in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. Right. That's the one that we go to, yeah. Mm-hmm. Huge. They just doubled the size last year. So, speaking of hypocrites, by the way, Bill de Blasio and Chirlane McCray get roasted for park stroll during coronavirus because they travel, unnecessary travel, by the way, in the city of New York. And he is the guy who's preaching against unnecessary travel and social distancing and all that. He's out walking around in a park 11 miles from his home in Manhattan. So Mayor de Blasio and wife Chirlane McCray didn't let coronavirus stop them from traveling 11 miles needlessly from Manhattan to Brooklyn's Prospect Park for a leisurely stroll, eliciting outrage from New Yorkers. Online video shows. I was going to show the video, but I decided not to for sake of time. Seriously, somebody said, you guys have a park. You live in the middle of a park, probably speaking of Central Park. You don't need to non-essentially travel to Brooklyn. His Honor responds, come on, guys, give it a break, as he and the First Lady continue to walk away. He said, no, I'm not going to give it a break. This is selfish behavior, he shouts to the mayor. This is so terribly selfish. You call yourself a progressive, but you chauffeur yourself to Brooklyn. You force people to drive to you. I mean, to drive you. Come on. And I think the guy has a point.
I agree.
By the way, it's not their first time. It's not their first time.
Well, and it's funny that his words are, you call yourself a progressive. You know, that's something, it sounds like that guy was a progressive.
Himself. Right. Otherwise, he'd have called himself a liberal.
Yeah.
He'd have said, you're a liberal.
Progressive. Right. Yeah, that's something that I would say. Yeah.
So, it's not the first time de Blasio and McCray, I don't know why they don't have the same last name, by the way, but anyways, have been spotted walking in Prospect Park since the coronavirus pandemic started. Before non-essential businesses like gyms were ordered closed amid the coronavirus crisis, de Blasio regularly made the journey in an SUV motorcade to the nearby Park Slope YMCA from Gracie Mansion. In other words, he couldn't use his own mansion gym or a different gym real close. He gets a motorcade. The guy, you know what? Cuomo even hates the guy. They fight all the time. Yeah. Cuomo puts him in his place all the time. Like when he said, well, I'm shutting down the schools indefinitely, and Cuomo came out an hour later, it's like, he can't shut down the schools. That's my call, you know? That's what I like about Cuomo. He's not scared to call him out. And I was telling my brother, our brother, I should say, I'm not a huge fan of Cuomo, but I like him. He reminds me, he's Clinton-esque. He really is a pragmatist. He's not a diehard liberal or progressive, as you'd call him. He's more of a pragmatist. Mm-hmm. So, come to find out.
Well, so just a second, rewind. Like halfway in the middle of your spiel, you said, I don't understand why they don't have the same last name. Why don't you not understand why they don't have the same last name?
Because you should have your husband's last name. Duh.
Oh.
The patriarchy. Come on.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that. All right.
Because I'm a traditionalist, man. I just believe that, hey, I don't know.
Why don't you let people just do what they want to do? Why does it matter?
I mean, they can. I'm a libertarian. You can do whatever you want. You want to. Honestly, I'm against all marriage being regulated by the state because it's a religious thing. But civil contracts, whether it's male, female, male, male, female, female, male, 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 female, female, you know, polygamy, whatever, as long as it's consenting adults and you don't cost me money, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So they can.
I know that among my generation, you know, I mean, I'm a millennial. I think you're still Generation X, but there are I have many friends. I sound like Trump. I have many friends.
Huge amount of friends. Yes. The greatest friends in the world. In fact, probably the most friends ever.
And they're, yes, they're the best friends. Mm-hmm. You'll love them. Anyway.
Smart. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and they have, you know, different last names. You know, my friends didn't take their husband's last name.
And so you're
like 1900. I'm not going to take his last name.
I know.
We'll hyphenate the kids' names, or we'll all hyphenate. You know.
It's like 2012. They eat Tide Pods too. I mean, I don't get it, but they did. All right.
One's unhealthy, and one is just a name.
Light the way. UV light treatment to fight coronavirus was already being tested when Trump was mocked for floating the idea. Testing on whether ultraviolet light could zap cells infected with the coronavirus was already underway when President Trump floated the idea at a press conference. I2 Bioscience had signed a deal with Cedars-Sinai to develop and commercialize a UV light as treatment for coronavirus-infected patients. The announcement was made on April 20th, a few days before Trump's now infamous press briefing. Here's where Trump got himself in trouble. He should have went with what Dr. Burt said. Hey, we had just advised the president on this thing. Yes, he got it kind of wrong and it sounded funny, but there are actual treatments in the works of what he was speaking about. Instead, Trump, I'll just being sarcastic. Y'all couldn't tell I was being sarcastic? Again, I've told you this with you on the show before, before you took your hiatus. I personally, I know you're going to disagree with this. I give Trump an A- on policy, but good God, I give him a D on handling his own message. Okay. Shut the F up, Trump. Lead.
This is what I think. Listen, I don't get mad at Trump over stupidity. A lot of people do over just stupid. I don't get mad at him about stupidity. I get mad at meanness, and that's a different discussion. But not really stupidity. Here's the problem: is that I think that if he had questions and he's brainstorming, a press conference isn't the place.
It's not the place, right? Yes, but you know what he's doing in his mind. You ever see those memes like what it thought it would look like and what it really looked like type of deal, right?
Yeah.
In his mind, he's thinking, "Oh man, people are gonna think I'm so smart asking these questions." In reality, he comes out sounding like an idiot. Yeah. Trump. Let the doctors be the doctors.
That's not the place to do that. Like when you're in a brainstorming session, anything is on the table.
Yeah, in fact,
anything is allowed. If you,
and no judgment allowed.
I actually understand his thought process. Lysol is, it kills it on surfaces. How can we do that in the body? Is there something?
And we do. It's called antibiotics, even though they don't consider that a disinfectant per se, but it is. It disinfects your body.
Well, at any rate, and I understand his thought process. But that's just not, you don't do that at a press conference. If you have that thought, you write it down, and then you think, in a few minutes when this is over, I'm going to go and ask
perfectly plausible explanation. Totally agree with you, Natalie. I'm going to send you a Trump hat tomorrow. But listen, the point is that when you do make a flub, be human and say, I shouldn't have been brainstorming right there. That was inappropriate. Or, yeah, I'm an idiot. Why did I do that? Laugh at yourself once in a while. And he would get some of the women vote back. They would be like, oh, man, he is actually human. But instead, he's got to sit there and try to sound like, I was just joking. Like a little kid that, got caught saying something he was joking.
We all know. I mean, at least just be honest.
It's like when my daughter gets loud, I'm like, who are you talking to? I was just joking. Come on, Trump. Come on, buddy. I'm pulling for you, man. I really am.
Oh my God.
But anyways, now here's how you could tell that this article was not written by a conservative, because they do quote some missed stuff. Although the pharmaceutical company is not conducting tests on bleach injections, it is developing Heal Light. Okay, first of all, Trump never said anything. In fact, down on the bottom, I included the PolitiFact, which is no friend of Trump. In context, what Donald Trump said about PolitiFact, the briefing transcripts show that Trump did not say people should inject themselves with bleach or alcohol to treat the coronavirus. He was doing exactly what you said. He was brainstorming.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. But you know that he did just by how he did it. He was saying, no, isn't there a way? And then he turns around and he asks like one of the experts.
Yeah. He's like, you guys are studying that, right?
Yeah, like that. Like he's coming up with ideas, and that is perfectly fine. I mean, the most stupid, asinine ideas are allowed when you're brainstorming. Anything is allowed, but you just not at a press conference, bro.
Yeah, please, man, just stop the nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so Trump, please, man, don't try to make up an excuse. Just go with it, dog. Go with it. All right, this is already would really bother me. Can estrogen, other sex hormones such as progesterone, produced by women help men survive coronavirus? Now, I believe that the liberal left, with all their gender fluidness and all that, I believe that they really are trying to and take down the patriarchy. They're really effeminating men. They're trying to turn us all into little girly boys. They are. I believe. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I really believe that.
It couldn't possibly be that we've been trapped and stuck in houses and for pretty much house slaves for thousands of years.
I'm not talking about that.
Long that humanity has existed. It can't possibly be that maybe we're just trying to liberate ourselves. It couldn't be that.
I mean,
we're trying to infeminate you. It's about you still.
No.
It's still about you.
Yeah, it is, because you guys are, man. You guys are like, oh, well, I don't want to put social constructs on my child, so I let him play with dolls. In fact, I encourage him to wear pink and stuff. Come on, man.
I don't do that.
I didn't say you. I said the liberal movement.
What I tell my son Benjamin sometimes, especially after he comes home from his grandparents' house, he comes home and he says, well, how come I can't, how come I, have to have blue and I can't have pink or whatever? I said, you can have whatever you want to. Or how come boys don't have long hair? And this is what I tell him, like the long hair is a big one. I was like, well, you can have long hair if you want to, but just letting you know that in our culture, boys have short hair and girls have long hair, unless you're a rock star. If you're a rock star, then boys have long hair.
Why can't I be a rock star, Mom?
Well, I just said that in our culture, that's how we do it. You don't have to. You can deviate from it if you want to, but the social norm is long hair for girls, short hair for boys. And I think that that's a perfectly acceptable answer. I don't sit here and go, yes, let's grow your hair out, let's make it long, and let's put, polish your nails and everything. I'm not gonna,
Well, there's a lot of liberal women that do that. Anyways, especially in Hollywood and where all this stuff comes from, Hollyweird. Can estrogen? Anyway, so they're trying to say, hey, the death rate for men is much higher once they get sick. Can they take down their hormones and put in progesterone? Basically, give them, hormonal sex change for a while, get them healed again, and then bump up there.
That is still controversial, even among liberals, to do that to children.
Yeah, this is for medical patients.
That is controversial to do that.
It should be controversial. It shouldn't even be controversial. It should be a non-issue.
That's something that should not be handled.
A kid should be 18. If a kid can't even vape until they're 21, they shouldn't be able to change their whole entire bodies until they're 21.
Yeah. Well,
if they can't vape till 21, they're not trusted enough to vape. Something pretty harmless overall till 21, then they should not be able to have gender reassignment until they're 21. I'm a libertarian. If they want to do it later in life, that's fine. But these liberals that are doing it to their kids, that giving them puberty blockers and everything, that is a freaking shame.
And again, it's extremely controversial even among liberals. But also, you have to understand too that we don't know their family. We don't know what conversations are had behind closed doors. We don't know, what this kid is, if he's harping. I have a friend of mine who is a transgender person in Grand Rapids, and when he was a female as a teenager, he would tell his parents over and over and over. He hounded them from the time that he was like 12 years old up until. And they just said, no, like they were just kind of waiting for him to outgrow it. And then finally, the minute he turned 18, he was, transitioning. As
okay.
Soon as he was.
That's okay.
Well, okay, but a lot of families, they hear stories like that, and they're like, well, why am I going to let my kid be miserable for years and years and years through, if they feel like they're in the wrong body? Now, for me,
listen.
I would probably put my child into therapy and everything else before I ever took that route.
Well, of course, yeah, but nothing permanent, man. Like I told my kids, I wasn't gonna, like, our parents were strict on us boys with haircuts and all that, but guess what? To me, if it's not permanent, by all means, have at it, man. You want a nose piercing? Go ahead. You might look stupid with that little cow thing in your nose there, but if you want your septum pierced, it's fine. You got good grades, going to church, whatever you're doing right, doing your homework. I don't care, mowing the lawn. As long as you're a good kid, do anything you want that's not permanent. But if you want tattoos, you do it when you're 18. When you can make your own adult decisions.
Yeah.
Okay? Same with anything like that. I felt like I was born in the wrong body. I should have had Brad Pitt's body. But, I don't. I'm 5'9", and I'm fat. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I'm uncomfortable in my body. Doesn't mean that, at 12 I should go and get liposuction, because people would say, well, you haven't fully grown yet. Let's see how it goes, and let's... maybe you like me. Now I'm glad I got the dad bod.
I know. I was just talking to my friend Josh, and I was like, I'm living proof that God makes mistakes, because I was supposed to be born a blonde. I don't know how I have brown hair. I was supposed to be a blonde. But
exactly.
We are.
All right. Go ahead. Final word.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I think you and I agree on the most part about nothing permanent. But I just try not to judge people. If I don't know what goes on in their house and the conversations.
I don't judge individuals, but I do judge policy.
I can't do that. I don't know. I don't know them.
Do you don't judge people? Do you judge Joe Biden if he's touching on your daughter in his house?
What does that have to do with people wanting to change their own body?
Because you said you don't judge people.
Well,
of course, we all judge people. That's my point. Is that we all judge people based on norms.
Okay, here, let me reframe. I don't judge people who's not hurting anybody. They're not hurting anyone.
You are hurting that child by giving them puberty blockers and hormones.
A teenager and they're,
Yes. Do you know what I had to go through? Do you know what I had to go through to get testosterone replacement? And I'm 43 years old. And my testosterone was consistently low. Do you know what I had to go through?
Yeah.
And all I had to do was say, "Hey, I'm a girl and I'm gender fluid and I'm not feeling manly enough," and they would have just given it to me. I mean, come on. Well, kids don't need hormone blockers and hormones. They don't need it. It's bad for their growing body.
But what if they had it right? What if they did it and then, and then they're 30 or 40 and they're like, yeah, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
In the grand scheme of things, let's say.
Imagine being a teenager having to live like that.
Let's say from 12 years old until 18, they felt that way, right? In the grand scheme of things, that 6 years out of 40 years is not that long. All right, got to move on. SCOTUS, Supreme Court. Oh, this is the Nation. They're a very liberal one. I threw this in there for you so that you could have a topic that I can beat you up on again. Hold on. Okay. Supreme Court of the United States just found a way to inflict more terror on immigrants. A new decision written by Kavanaugh, and they got a picture of him winking. I'm an asshole. Reaffirms the idea that the government can reach into a black or brown person's life and destroy it at any time. First of all, that's racist in itself. Okay, because not only black and brown people immigrate to the United States, Europeans do too, Canadians do, all types of people immigrate. Secondly, the case that they're referring to was a guy who committed multiple crimes. Yes, he later became a permanent resident, or he was a permanent resident when he did it, but until you are a citizen of the United States, you remain deportable no matter how long the crime happened to go, especially if it's a series of crimes, and especially since Bill Clinton, a Democrat who would probably have to be a Republican nowadays because the Democrat Party left the Bill Clinton of the 90s, signed into a law, an immigration reform law that said, hey, if you have serial drug offenses or certain felonies, you are deportable as a green card holder. And they tried not to deport him. The ICE said, no, we are going to deport him. It went all the way to Supreme Court. And Justice Kavanaugh said, this is what the law says, and this is how it's supposed to go. And he wrote the opinion, but at least five of the justices all agreed with him. If you were a criminal, even if you turned into Mother Teresa in the last 5 years, you still inflicted harm on society and had to serve time, you are now deportable for the rest of your life. What's wrong with that?
I don't know. Honestly, if somebody, so I don't have a problem with deporting people if they are, if they went to jail, if they're in prison, if they actually committed a true crime. I don't mean like a crime like, they went to the border illegally or they, I mean like an actual, like what any American citizen would get in trouble for. If they do that and they're not a citizen, I don't have a problem with deporting.
Do you understand why that makes no sense, right? Because if you say, hey, you get across our border, overstay your visa, after we trusted you with a visa, right? And you overstay, well, then you're non-deportable unless you commit another crime. So all you did was play chicken with our borders. In other words, now you created a situation where we have to militarize our border because every Tom, Dick, and Harry from down south or from across the world who will come through down south or overstay a visa is going to take their chance to do it in order to stay here free of charge, non-deportable. And that was the problem with the Democrats.
Do you understand? Okay, so first of all, I have a friend right now in Sweden, right? And Sweden's a very nice country. And she's over there with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend is there because he's waiting on his visa in the United States because he didn't get his visa extended. He couldn't get it. They for whatever reason didn't push it through in time. It was like a secretarial thing or whatever. And so he's over in Sweden waiting because he doesn't want to be in the United States legally. But the thing is that he comes from a family with enough money where he can get sent here. Do you know how expensive it is for these people to go all the way back home? It already cost them, to go and to have to come back. It's almost, you can't do it.
For
almost.
your, so
they can't.
For your situation,
and they've built a life, and then their visa isn't extended. It's not like you and I, if we, we would come up with the money and we'd come back over. It is not like that down there.
Okay.
Maybe places that are real close to the border, maybe they could pull it off. But when you're talking,
most of these people,
Guatemala,
yeah,
and those. It's impossible.
Most of those people come here with the intention of overstaying their visa. And the reason why is because they know that politicians on both sides of the aisle, but especially the Democrat side of the aisle, but both sides, I'm going to give it to both sides, have turned a blind eye, and they know that they can get away with it. If you're rich enough to get a visa.
I don't think that they think about it politically like that. I think that they think about it as a matter of their own livelihood.
No, I'm not talking about them. No.
They're on a visa, and they think that they'll get it extended, and then it doesn't get extended.
No, they don't. They don't think it's going to get extended.
So am I going to go all the way back to my home country? Or am I going to?
They don't have to. They only have to touch back to the nearest country outside the border. So they could go back to Mexico and do it. Mexico would allow them to stay. But bottom line,
Nathan, they don't know anybody right there at the border of Mexico if they live in Guatemala. It's not like they're all cousins.
Bottom line is these people come in order to stay, and
yeah, they want to be our neighbors. What's the problem with that?
Because we have laws, we have rules. What's the problem? Let's say Benny was in line. Let me ask you this. If Benny, right, he's in line at school every day, and come to find out, you found out that some bully has been basically cutting in front of the line every day. Would you say, oh, he's just your neighbor? Or would you go to that school and say, hey, that's not right. It's unfair. Please tell that kid to quit bullying my kid and jumping in front of the line.
Well, you don't know if he is. First of all, that's a really bad comparison, because those are children who are well fed and have parents at home who are cutting each other in line. And then there are immigrants who aren't well fed and they don't have a lot of opportunity at home.
And where do we cut them off?
You're comparing them to our well fed American children.
So, do you agree that we're a nation of laws? And do you agree that if they get over here knowing that they won't be deported, that they're not going to stop coming?
I agree. Listen.
And where do we draw the line?
I've never had a problem with a strong border. I've never had a problem with deporting people, even if they haven't taken their opportunities to come over. I just think that we need to provide more opportunity for people to come over here legally with H-2A and H-2B positions, like I've said before.
Plenty of them. I agree.
Opportunity. We need to expedite visas.
But that's a legal system.
And if somebody, and we were talking about actual criminals, people who have had drug offenses or violent offenses over here, if they have done that, then yes, we should deport them. We agree on that.
Yes, we do.
I don't have a problem with a strong border. I just want it to be an ethical one.
It is ethical as it currently stands. What's unethical is giving people a pipe dream thinking that they can come over here and stay. And that's what the Democrats did during the debate. All right, next story. Supreme Court has decided. Actually, the Supreme Court is questioning its own authority to decide Trump financial doc cases. I think that's a smart move, very smart move, and I'll tell you why. Because this is one of my favorite classes in law school, is constitutional law, and they have no right. So this comes out of the fact of Congress trying to force Trump to provide documentation. Supreme Court saying, hey, we as a co-equal branch of government, we cannot really force the executive, and we can't get in the middle between your fight. In other words, we're all equals here. And this is really important because for so long we have looked at the Supreme Court, the judiciary, up until recently, as all of a sudden this not co-equal branch of government, but a supreme branch of government that could stop any part of the government it wants with unelected judges. And we see this a lot with the nationwide injunctions and the Supreme Court is actually starting to rule that in a little bit too. And they're saying, hey, no, we are a co-equal. In fact, the whole reason why our orders don't even say orders, they say opinion of the court, is because it's an opinion. We're supposed to give our opinion on these things so they don't get involved in politics. I think it's a smart move by the Supreme Court to get out of the way and become non-political again. What do you think? You think they should get involved and force Trump to disclose his stuff?
Yeah, I think so, because I think that the Supreme Court is part of the checks and balances. And so Trump is the executive branch of the Supreme Court. That's a checks and balance thing. So, yeah, I think they should get involved. I
disagree. I think that only elected, they're unelected. they're appointed for life. I think that they should be, if anything, the weakest branch of government. And the founding fathers actually envisioned Congress as being, if there was going to be a stronger branch, the strongest branch, it was going to be Congress, and that's why they gave them the power of the purse. That is why the Supreme Court has no enforcement mechanism, by the way. In fact, in order to enforce it, they would have to rely on the executive branch to enforce it.
But that's the reason why we don't have them they're not elected, is because we don't want them to be played by politics, and we want them to actually be able to have authority at the end of the day.
They don't have authority, though. What can they do?
Well, they uphold the Constitution. And so if something is unconstitutional, then they, you know,
But
make it go away.
What enforcement mechanism do they have? I'm going to hold you in contempt, but in order to hold anybody in contempt, they have to have the executive branch do it. So,
well, okay, but they can also, if a ruling comes up to them and it's unconstitutional, then that policy or whatever it is, that goes away.
Well, there were presidents that ignored the Supreme Court and got away with it, because the only way a president can get in trouble is by impeachment. And really, this president and really Congress at any time could ignore the Supreme Court. The problem is that, not the problem, the good thing is that we've always kind of allowed that to happen, to where we've said, okay, Supreme Court has ruled, then that must be the way the law is interpreted, and that's how we do it. But there are times where I think, especially for lower court judges, where you have one judge in San Francisco, a district judge, a very low-level judge, do a nationwide injunction, which to me is unconstitutional, of an entire policy of the President of the United States, regardless who's in power. If I was the president, I'd be like, okay, hey, thank you for your opinion.
But then we have a weak Congress, though, because when that happens, the Congress should be on board with the Supreme Court, so that the Congress
would impeach
the executive branch. Yeah,
right, exactly.
That's a weak Congress.
Well, I think it's a slippery slope. I'm all about the Supreme Court getting involved in deciding their own constitutional authority. That's what they did way back in the day in Marbury. But I think that it is up to Congress to rein in the president. It's not up to the Supreme Court to rein into the president. And if they really think that the president should hand over documents, then get the Senate on board, impeach him, and remove him from office. That is the way to do it.
Yeah.
All right, so another Supreme Court news, because it's a Supreme Court release decision time. Supreme Court declines to rule on its Second Amendment case in nearly a decade. What happened was New York City, so the Supreme Court said Monday they will not issue a ruling in a closely watched case over a New York gun regulation. The court said in an unsigned opinion that the rollback of the rule by city and state officials, including Cuomo, so don't let him fool you, Republicans, it was rolled back by city and state officials after the court agreed to hear the case, effectively ended the dispute. 3 of the court's conservatives would have still heard the case. So basically what this was about was New York gun regulation that barred transport of handguns outside the city, including the second homes and firing ranges. Earlier courts had ruled, I think some of the courts ruled in their favor, saying, oh yeah, that's reasonable. Of course, they were liberals. And then other courts said, no, that is an infringement on the Second Amendment. Once it got to the Supreme Court, while New York City had previously defended its gun regulation in court, once the Supreme Court agreed to review it, both the city and state, quote, sprang into action to prevent us from deciding this case, Alito, George W. Bush appointee, wrote. Why? Because they saw the writing on the wall, and they knew that it was going to be really bad for them. And in fact, that the decision could have gone farther and totally struck down even parts that are still in effect. You remember that, Republicans. Anytime you hear about a moderate Democrat who's running, yes, they might be moderate themselves, but once they get to Washington, they get perverted and they vote with whatever the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, tells them to. If you want your guns restricted at the state or federal level, you just keep voting those moderate Democrats. They will turn on you as soon as they get around their liberal friends, 100% of the time. That's my message to you conservatives.
I don't like Nancy Pelosi, so I don't. But I also understand why we have gun legislation too. You know, I think that you know, an AR-15, you know, that's not something that really belongs in the hands of everyday people. But
why?
Well, because I mean, what was it? What did the Army Study Guide teach us about? Because the AR-15 is pretty much like the M16. It's just the civilian version. And so, how many bullets? How many rounds per minute is it? Was it 30 or 60 or?
It's a lot, but that's fully automatic. Those aren't legal anyways.
And so when you go into a school with that, that's that.
Well, by law, they can't be fully automatic or burst anyways. They're already semi-automatic.
Yeah. It
so
just
you'd have to
blast function, but it still can go. I mean, you don't have to keep reloading. It has a magazine. And so one right after another, boom, 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 boom. You go into a school or an elementary school.
Why was the Second Amendment put in?
Well, I understand why the Second Amendment was put in, but that was because we were a brand new country, and we were afraid of getting taken back over. And so, this isn't the same anymore. This is 300 years later. I mean, it's.
All right. So, who do you restrict from owning guns if we have gun control? Because guess what? No criminal, no thug, no mass shooter cares if there's a sign that says gun-free zone.
All of the little militias, like your friend Kevin, who came on here, the Virginia militia, all of those militias, they will never have the gun power or the intelligence or
contraire. Contraire.
And they are fooling themselves if they think that keeping AR-15s in the hands of Americans is going to be any kind of a match. I mean, they're delusional.
When you were in Afghanistan, what was your biggest threat?
All it's going to do is keep them into the hands of crazies who are going to get them, even if they're not given to them, from a shop, they're going to find it from their uncle who has it or whoever, and they're going to get it and they're going to shoot up schools. We're going to continue to have school shootings. So
when you were in Afghanistan or Brandon was in Iraq or whatever, what was your biggest threat?
Our biggest threat?
Yeah, being in a war zone. It's IEDs, right? In guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
Yes, militias would cause a lot of problems for the United States if that ever happened. God, I hope it never happens. But guerrilla warfare can take down any traditional enemy any day.
Yeah.
Period. Yes, we fight large wars against whole countries, but if once we get there and we take over the government, then we have the real war that starts. That's the guerrilla warfare of resistors.
You know what, though? I remember being inside the talks and stuff while I was over there, and the intelligence that we have, it is phenomenal. It really is. I say this a lot to people. It really is almost like walking into the Hunger Games, like in the game rooms. It is amazing what we have over there. And the only thing that was stopping us from decimating everybody in there was nothing but the ROE. So
yeah, put in by who? All right, moving on. That'd be the Democrats. They always tie up the hands of the warfighters. So Supreme Court declines the rule. Got that one. Boom. Moving on. Kristin Cavallari and Jay Cutler announced divorce after 10 years together. So they put this tweet out. It's on the screen. And it's them. They're walking and they have their arms around each other. And it says, Kristin says, with great sadness, after 10 years together, we have come to a loving conclusion to get a divorce. Okay, that's liberal speak right there. A loving conclusion to get a divorce. If you loved each other enough to conclude something, it probably shouldn't be divorce. Anyways, we have nothing. And now I'm speaking personally here. I believe that as a libertarian, you have the right to do whatever you want. You want to F your kid's life up? I'm guilty of it too. Do it. Nothing more traumatic to a kid than divorce. We have nothing but love and respect for one another and deeply grateful for the years shared, memories made, and the children we are so proud of. This is just a situation of two people growing apart. We ask everyone to respect our privacy as we navigate these difficult times within our family. Boo freaking who? Look, you know what the truth is. She's always been a materialistic woman. She was that way on the MTV show. What was it? Laguna Beach or whatever, back in the day. Her husband's unemployed now because he was a quarterback that came to work every day looking like he had a hangover and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And she's done with him. Let's just be real. Don't put the sappy shit on there. Say, hey, my husband, yeah, he's a bum. I don't like him anymore. He's out.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I thought pop culture would get you, man. You're a girl.
Well, I know. Well, people divorce for a lot of reasons, and sometimes people, they really just aren't happy, and to me, I don't know. Do they have children together?
Yes.
Their kids?
Yeah, they do have kids. They have 3, I think.
Yeah. Well,
She used to be hot, too. She's kind of not that hot anymore.
well, you know.
So Jay probably could do better anyways, because I'm sure he's got a few million left over. And he's going to get half of her fortune, too. So.
I always feel like it's a shame when families break up when the kids are little, you know?
I agree, too. Yeah. Yeah, my son was devastated. He quit talking for a couple of years. You know, it's harmful for children. It is harmful for children. In fact, I almost think that for the sake of children, I don't know. I'm not going to get in that. We don't have enough time for that conversation. We only got like 9 minutes left. All right, New York clinical trial quietly tests heartburn remedy against coronavirus. Why did they quietly do it? They said because they did not want anybody coming in and hoarding the medicine, but the same medicine that you can get in Pepcid AC, which is called famotidine, the active compound in the OTC heartburn drug Pepcid, is showing promise in killing or eliminating COVID-19 from your body. All I can say is, for the sake of this coming out, and so that every liberal doesn't blast it as all of a sudden not going to be good, just don't let Trump say anything about it. Because God forbid he says something, then all of a sudden the media and the liberals will be like, oh, it must suck because Trump said it. You know, so we can't have any of that. But I like how we're finding all these existing drugs that can fight all these diseases now, because we've had so many existing drugs. And I bet you it just scares the shit out of Gilead Sciences and all them that like are creating these going to be very expensive drugs. Because what they did, you know what they did? They put all this information into like Watson, you know, that supercomputer, IBM's Watson and other supercomputers, and they found other drugs that could possibly work for this COVID-19. And, you know, it sucks because other companies are spending billions. But, hey, if we can find something that's going to cure you for $6 versus $6,000, I'm down, dude.
Yeah.
That's free market.
Yeah. No, you know, and
so why is the media and the liberals so? They were from the get-go, even though it was just the only thing, because this is new and novel. That's why they call it the novel coronavirus, right? As soon as he mentioned hydroxychloroquine, the media narrative and the liberals just went furious over it. And usually I would expect the liberals to be the one to be championing for the poor a very inexpensive potential cure as long
as it's not going to give the poor more problems, you know. I don't know.
I'll tell you what gives problems. Bankruptcy.
It could be Trump bias, but, you know, wasn't Dr. Fauci, you know, the expert, wasn't he kind of against?
But Dr. Fauci's been in government since 1980 or something. Well, I have yet to find anything. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I haven't found anything yet that he's been right on. Name one thing he's been correct on.
Well, so the American people, when they hear Trump, who has kind of a reputation of jumping the gun, kind of blurting things, kind of not, you know, and then you have Dr. Fauci, who's been here since the 1980s, and he's the expert in the field, you know, saying, no, Trump, that's not what we should do. And they're kind of, you know, which side are they going to go with? You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Fauci ain't been right about shit so far. Dr. Birx, I like her. She's been good. The Surgeon General's been good. This Dr. Fauci, he's just like getting his 15 minutes of fame and he loves it. He's like me. He's got short man syndrome. All right. Exporting the virus. Migrants deported by U.S. make up 20% of Guatemala's coronavirus cases. The only Norma Torres, the California representative, the sole Central American in Congress, and an immigrant from Guatemala, told CBS News, I do believe that the U.S. is exporting the virus. Excuse me? We're not exporting the virus. We're just returning your people back. That's not exporting the virus. You don't know that they didn't get it down there and came up with it. My God, how can you try to illegally cross our borders, get into our borders, and then we send you back if you happen to have coronavirus, we're exporting coronavirus to your country. No, you were exporting your citizens to ours, and we just returned them. This is what I don't get about liberals. It's never anybody's fault. Unless it's something bad, then it's America's fault.
Well, you know, it's not that. It's that, you know, everybody needs to stay contained. So you're sending them back, but, you know, you're also kind of.
Why are we paying for their health care?
Along the way, you know what I mean? Like,
it's not our job to pay for their health care. Send them back to Guatemala and say, hey, good luck.
Well, Okay, well, that's fine, but they do need to be isolated. They do need to be contained. They need to stay in their house.
Dear Guatemala, here's your citizen back. We advise that you isolate them for 14 days. Sincerely, the
They're
Trump
all
administration.
along the way. They needed to stay in their house. It's not the time to deport.
They were in jails. They were detained.
Oh, I missed that part. Well, if they're in jail, keep them in
But that's
jail.
just a perfect example of media bias. That's CBS News running a sob story because, the poor migrants. They knew the risk coming up. It's like when you see all these kids, the poor kids crossing the border. Look at them at 11 years old crossing the borders by themselves. Forget that. Yeah, poor kids. Now let's put a warrant out for their parents' arrest for allowing their kid to travel 1,000 miles alone with coyotes through Mexico up into our border. That's called endangering the welfare of a child.
Isn't that so sad that it has to be that bad at home that they would send their child with coyotes?
That is a lack of love of kids.
Across the border, isn't that kind of sad?
No, that's a lack of love of kids.
Better deal than keeping them at home.
That is disgusting, endangering the welfare of a child. 11 years old.
But if at home is like America, but at home is not like America. That's why they're sending them to America. So isn't it sad that they would put them through those conditions because it's better than being at home, because the payoff of being in America will be better?
Do you think they should have a warrant for their arrest?
No, they shouldn't put a warrant for their arrest.
Of course, that's endangering the child's life. That's endangering. Them kids are raped on the way up here. All right, we got to move on. Them kids are raped on the way up here, though.
Okay. No. We're not going to move on after that. Okay, first of all, for whatever reason, their parents think that when they get to America, it's going to be better. And in their countries that they're at are war torn, and and they're afraid for their children. So they send them and they get them through, and then when they get to the other side, then they can,
You're scared of gangs, right?
And their parents are trying to be good parents.
They're scared of gangs. Why don't they all just gang? Listen, I just let you finish. Let me finish. If they're scared of gangs, why don't they just create their own gang and do vigilante justice and create a better country for themselves?
Well, why would they do that if they can think that somehow they can get over into the United States?
Yeah, that's why. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Joe Biden slams...
Just being human, like you wouldn't do the same thing.
Joe Biden slams big corporations greedy as hell for taking the federal stimulus money that they were legally able to take. I think it was bad that big corporations took that money, the PPP. However, I don't say it's greedy because we shut them down. It's unfair to these corporations, even big corporations, that we shut them down and pretty much put them out of business. Like Kohl's has not been open for 6 weeks. They can't sustain that forever. Then I got a meme up here. If I had a coin for every woman I have not touched, and it shows Joe Biden holding 2 coins. That was just funny.
Logan's is closed permanently.
Yeah, they're going out of business. So you think, they're a big corporation. Big corporations still have margins and people to pay too, So, it's hurting them. One last slide. I guess we got about a minute to discuss. CNN abandons Tara Reid after one story. Network Sunday show skipped the Tara Reid story. This is the lady who's credibly accused Joe Biden of sexual assault, not harassment. Biased journalism is gutting the Me Too movement. Media treated Joe Biden's accuser differently than Brett Kavanaugh. By the way, there's another neighbor of this lady can corroborate her story at the time that it happened. So what's going on with the media, man? What's going on with the Me Too movement? Shouldn't they be protecting and demanding answers?
And this is exactly why I'm a progressive and I'm against establishment.
So why did Bernie Sanders? Why is he endorsing Joe Biden and not asking the questions? That would go a long way. Or Elizabeth Warren.
Here's the mindset of the progressives. Is the progressives we're all about Me Too. And we're all about, anti-establishment and everything. But the problem that we're having is that right now we've been pushed into a corner where we have to choose what we perceive as the lesser of two evils.
Yep.
And that's what Bernie's doing. Bernie's saying anybody but Trump. We cannot have Trump in, so he's endorsing.
All right, I got to cut you off because we are so out of time. We were going to get to Pelosi says Democrats will push for vote by mail. I think that's opening up to voter fraud, but we will actually discuss that tomorrow. Me and Natalie, that will be the top story tomorrow. Thanks for being on, and glad that you're back.
No, I'm glad to be back too. I got to keep you in your place.
That's right.